Hello lovely, welcome to another Arty Mouse episode. Today I'm going to show you how to transfer an image into a faithful copy of your own without tracing or cheating. Tell me in the comments what you have trouble with in your drawing, and as always I'll give you some tips to help you make your art better. All it takes to get better is a bit of determination, so go ahead and get some help in the comments below. In this episode, I'm going to teach you about value maps and gridding out, which will help you to get your head around producing copies of photographs. So if a family member has asked you to draw your Auntie Mabel's dog, or you want to paint a picture of your best mate's favourite actor so you can give it as a gift, this is for you. I learned to draw like this by taking pictures of bands from music magazines and copying them over and over again until I started to improve. Take a printout of the picture you want to copy rather than drawing from the original. This means you can draw all over the copy and still keep your main image nice and pristine. I've gridded out my photocopy here with 2x2 cm squares, and I've transferred exactly the same amount of squares to a piece of paper. Make sure when you are drawing a grid that you use squares rather than rectangles, because you have to transfer exactly the same dimensions, and if you're sizing up or down, then you've got a lot more maths to do. This is a little bit pointless. It's always easier to stay with squares and make your life far less complicated. I've got 7 horizontal and 8 vertical squares in my image, so I've transferred exactly the same ratio over to the drawing. I find it easier to start drawing in the middle of my image and work out which square or which point is in the middle on the original drawing and on my paper. Then I start following one by one what's in each square. Cover the other squares if you need to, so that you can focus on the section you need to. It can make it easier for some people if you start off with a square that's got quite a lot of information in it and build around that one, whatever's easier for you. As always, what I'm saying is never the right way to do things, because the right way doesn't exist. I only ever tell you the methods that have always worked for me. Keep moving to the next square, systematically marking out what's in it, referencing the previous square you worked on as a check that you've got it right, and then moving to the next one until it's complete. Follow the system, marking in what you see in each square, and not really worrying about anything else around it, covering the other squares with plain paper if you need to. If there's a square that's a little bit more complicated and you can't figure out how everything comes together, the simplest thing to do is actually make more squares. Divide the difficult square into another 4 equal squares, and just concentrate on what's in each corner section, simplifying it all over again. Keep moving around, concentrating on individual squares, using the grid as a map. Sometimes your lines can look a little bit strange at this point, but just trust the process, keep going and believe the lines. What you're doing here essentially is removing the reality of the image you can actually see and creating shapes and lines, taking away your brain's need to see that this is a face and these are fingers, because all you're looking at is one little section of the image at a time and transferring information, like a computer printer. At this stage, the detail doesn't need to be acknowledged, just the shapes you want to follow. What this process is doing is giving you a map for later on, when you begin shading or painting. Sometimes this feels a little bit like cheating. It's like tracing without actually tracing, but it gives you a map, a guide for future reference in your painting that will keep you on the right track. Tell me in the comments if you've tried this and whether it worked for you. Now I'm going to talk you through value mapping. This is the technique to practice working out where the tones in a particular image are and identifying them in order to make drawing easier. It's an exercise I use to get familiar with an image before going on to my main drawing or painting. Start with the grid again, marking out your page and transferring the information over, mapping out your image, tracing without tracing. We're going to think about simplifying this image in order to work it out a little more clearly. you need to start thinking about which are the lightest areas of your picture and which are the darkest areas, and by default, what's left in the middle. If you've been on one of my art courses, you will have learnt all about how to do this. I've chosen an image with lots of contrast here because it makes it a lot easier to show you what I mean. I'm starting with very dark areas using a 6B, which is very soft, and I'm going to map in all the areas that I can see that are extremely dark. I've drawn out my construction lines where the darkened spaces are with pale pencil marks so that I can now follow for my shading. Now remember, this is a good exercise rather than being an artistic technique, so the outcome might look a little weird. It will, however, make you think about where the shadows and tones are on your picture. After marking out the darker areas, I've then worked into it with a 2B pencil, which is a little lighter, and worked in some of the mid-tones. The very light tones I will leave alone because the paper shade is enough for that section. I'm only making flat shapes, not thinking about detail in the tones in the traditional sense, just thinking about making a more graphic, cartoony image. I can work into this image using as many tones as I like. I'm just using 3 tones here, with a darker, a middle and a light tone, but you can keep developing it and create about 6 different tone levels if you really wanted to be prepared. It really is just a tool for practice, an exercise for tonal mapping. Again, you might do this as a preparatory drawing before you complete a final image to get your head around a complicated picture before you jump in with both feet and start your real drawing or painting. Have you tried value mapping before? Let me know in the comments, or ask me questions if you need to clarify something with me. I do reply to every comment. When you've mastered these 2 ideas, you can take them further to make a final image. I prepared for this image with a value map and then gridded out my printed image, drew my basic lines and then added the values square by square until I'd built up my picture. It feels like cheating, but it isn't. It's like a sat-nav for drawing. Follow the steps and develop your skills. Tell me in the comments which image you're going to start with, a favourite actor or singer maybe, or someone you love. Let me know. If you want more art tips, you can join my mailing list by clicking the link below and you'll get some extra fun stuff to do as well. I send weekly newsletters with art ideas, but I'll never share your email address with anyone else because I don't know anybody anyway. I run art courses online too, so the newsletter is the best way to find out what technique or medium I'm going to do my next course on and get a sneaky special deal when I do. Sign up below and join the Arty Mouse tribe.